Years after the cameras stopped rolling, the family story has continued in unexpected directions, pulled into viral internet moments, real-world tragedy, high-stakes medical ethics debates, and quiet career reinvention. From teenage social media controversies to hurricane-ravaged Florida visits, from a neonatologist stepping into national-level medical discussions to a once televised family choosing near-total privacy, the little couple's transformation is causing quite a stir. So what really happened to Bill, Jen, Will, and Zoey? When the little couple premiered on TLC in March 2009, it arrived during the height of the reality television boom. Audiences were already familiar with programs built around unusual family dynamics. But Bill Klein and Dr. Jennifer Arnold brought something different to the screen. They were not aspiring celebrities looking for fame. Bill was an entrepreneur, while Jen was a practicing neonatologist specializing in the care of premature and critically ill newborns. Their story was rooted not in manufactured drama, but in the realities of marriage, medicine, and living with skeletal dysplasia. Both Bill and Jen have forms of spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, a rare genetic condition that affects bone growth and results in short stature. Jen underwent 22 surgeries before reaching adulthood and would eventually undergo more than 30 procedures. Bill also spent much of his life in hospitals, accumulating more than 20 surgeries. Long before they became one of TLC's most recognizable couples, Bill and Jen had already crossed paths in a hospital. Around the age of 10, both were recovering from surgeries. Bill would later recall seeing a young girl at the end of a hospital corridor and briefly entering her room. Jen, heavily medicated and recovering, remembered none of it. The two would spend the next 20 years living separate lives. Before becoming a television personality, Jen was building an impressive medical career. After facing discrimination during the college admissions process because of her height, she continued pursuing her ambitions and ultimately became a neonatologist. Meanwhile, Bill built a successful business career and developed a reputation for his humor and determination despite years of bullying during his youth. Fate intervened again in adulthood through an online dating platform. Friends had attempted to set them up before, without success. Bill later joked that Jen essentially sent him a cold call email, while Jen admitted she was simply trying to be brave. Their relationship developed rapidly despite the logistical challenges. Because the community of little people is relatively small and geographically dispersed, long-distance dating was common. Bill famously boarded a plane to meet Jen in person, a gesture that reflected just how committed he already was to making the relationship work. By April 2008, the couple had married, more than a year before the little couple debuted on TLC. The foundation of their relationship was built away from reality television cameras and public attention. The central appeal of the little couple emerged from the balance between the extraordinary and the familiar. On one hand, viewers witnessed challenges unique to skeletal dysplasia. Everyday activities required adaptations. Homes had to be modified. Medical appointments were a recurring reality. On the other hand, the series focused on experiences recognizable to almost any family, balancing work and home life, navigating marriage, and supporting one another through difficult times. As the show gained popularity, audiences became invested in the couple's pursuit of parenthood. Fertility struggles and pregnancy losses became part of their story, revealing a deeply personal battle that unfolded long before they eventually adopted their children. In 2009, public conversations about disability representation were far less prominent than they would become. By inviting cameras into their lives, Bill and Jen exposed millions of viewers to experiences they may never have encountered otherwise. The show provided visibility to dwarfism while also challenging stereotypes. Instead of focusing solely on physical differences, it highlighted careers, relationships, ambitions, and everyday routines. From its debut through its eventual conclusion, the TLC series presented Bill and Jen's lives as authentically as possible, but the reality behind reality television was far more complicated. Many moments audiences believed were unfolding naturally had actually been recreated after the fact. Real life rarely unfolds on a production schedule. Birthdays, anniversaries, and special occasions were often experienced privately first, then repeated for production crews later. Jen openly acknowledged that many events shown on television were recreations rather than the original celebration. The challenge became even more complicated because both stars maintained demanding careers outside the show. Jen's workplace was a functioning medical environment where patient privacy and hospital regulations took precedence over entertainment. Texas Children's Hospital was initially cautious about granting access. Throughout the series, Bill and Jen consistently established boundaries. As their marriage progressed, they wanted children, but their path to parenthood would prove far more difficult than either expected. Jen experienced multiple pregnancy losses. They explored surrogacy, but heartbreak intervened again when their surrogate also lost the pregnancy. Bill was forced to deliver the devastating news to Jen while she was at work. Having exhausted multiple avenues, in March 2013, Bill and Jen adopted their son, Bill Klein, from China. Just 7 months later, they adopted Zoey Klein from India. The timing surprised many observers. Bill and Jen later explained that Zoey's adoption was not part of a carefully orchestrated plan. They had been on adoption lists for years, and when the opportunity arose, they felt compelled to move forward. Adoption experts advised them that establishing strong emotional bonds should take priority over filming. The family temporarily shut down production following each adoption, keeping cameras away for approximately 6 weeks while the children adjusted. That decision became especially important during Zoey's transition. The earliest months were far more complicated than what viewers eventually saw. Zoey struggled with leaving an orphanage in India and adapting to a completely new environment. Bill and Jen later revealed that many of those difficult moments were intentionally kept off camera. At the same time, Jen was dealing with a life-altering cancer diagnosis. Even during her cancer battle, cameras were allowed only because she chose to permit them. Bill later made it clear that the decision belonged entirely to her. As the children grew older, maintaining boundaries became even more important. Reality television has often been criticized for placing children at the center of storylines, but Bill and Jen deliberately resisted that approach. Although Will and Zoey became fan favorites, they were never the primary focus. The couple repeatedly emphasized that most of their family life occurred away from cameras. Ironically, the children themselves often cared the least about the production process. According to Bill and Jen, Will and Zoey largely ignored the camera crews and treated them as temporary obstacles. If a crew member stood in the way, the children had no hesitation about telling them to move. As the show's popularity grew, a series of smaller debates emerged. One of the earliest centered on the couple's adoption decisions in 2013. To many viewers, the outcome was heartwarming. Others questioned whether bringing 2 young children into the family in such a short time frame was too ambitious. Bill and Jen defended the decision by explaining that the adoptions had developed independently. Will's adoption process had already been underway for nearly a year when an unexpected opportunity arose regarding Zoey. What appeared from the outside to be a carefully planned double adoption was largely the result of timing and circumstance. Another debate emerged from the very premise of the show itself. The little couple was created partly to increase awareness of dwarfism and provide visibility to people living with skeletal dysplasia. For many viewers, the program succeeded. However, some disability advocates questioned whether shows centered on physical differences unintentionally encouraged audiences to view participants through a lens of hardship rather than capability. Ironically, another criticism pointed in the opposite direction. While some viewers felt the show highlighted adversity too much, others believed it portrayed family life as unrealistically perfect. Part of that perception existed because many of the family's hardest moments never appeared on television. In reality, the family simply chose to protect certain private experiences from public consumption. Fan attention also extended beyond television screens. During their years in Houston, Bill revealed that viewers occasionally showed up uninvited at the family's home, leaving notes in the mailbox or visiting the property, hoping to catch a glimpse of the television family. By the time The Little Couple reached its final stretch on TLC, the story unfolding behind the camera had already shifted from family milestones to a legal conflict. The central conflict emerged between LMNO Cable Group, the independent production company behind the series, and Discovery Communications, the parent company of TLC. The dispute escalated into a broader legal battle involving allegations of accounting irregularities and control over intellectual property. At the center was how profits and production rights were managed across multiple unscripted programs, including The Little Couple. LMNO accused Discovery of interfering in contractual arrangements and restructuring relationships in a way that affected ownership and financial flows tied to the show. As the corporate dispute expanded, Bill and Jen found themselves indirectly drawn into the litigation. In 2017, they moved to intervene, arguing that they were entitled to pursue compensation connected to the show's financial structure. Their involvement marked a turning point. The stars of a family-centered reality series were now active participants in a complex intellectual property and contract dispute involving major media entities. They filed claims of their own, including allegations of breach of contract and fraud. At the heart of their legal effort was an attempt to regain control over intellectual property rights associated with The Little Couple. The legal battle reached a critical juncture in May 2020, when a federal court issued a significant ruling. The court rejected key portions of Bill and Jen's claims, including allegations of fraud and conversion. The judge concluded that the evidence presented did not meet the threshold required to move those claims forward. The court also denied their attempt to rescind intellectual property rights, a decision that effectively blocked efforts to regain ownership or control over the series' core rights structure. While a narrower breach of contract claim was allowed to proceed, the production trajectory of The Little Couple had already changed irreversibly. Filming had halted during the legal uncertainty, and new episodes did not resume after the 2019 season. In 2017, the family relocated to Florida after Jen accepted a position at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg. By 2021, they had moved again, this time to Natick, Massachusetts, in the Boston area. The relocation followed Jen's appointment at Boston Children's Hospital and her expanded role as a faculty member at Harvard Medical School. Her career evolved beyond clinical practice into leadership and academic teaching. Bill Klein continued developing and managing Rocky and Maggie's, a pet boutique and grooming business founded in Houston in 2012. Even after television exposure ended, social media became the family's primary connection with the public. That controlled distance was briefly disrupted in 2023 when a TikTok video featuring Will, then 13, circulated online. The clip used a dance trend set to a 3-6 Mafia track containing explicit lyrics, sparking debate about parental oversight. The incident mirrored broader conversations happening across social media about the children of reality TV families, similar to the scrutiny faced by the Duggar children and the Goslin twins as they've aged into adolescence under public watch. The whole thing faded as quickly as it had gone viral. In 2024, attention returned in a different tone when Jen shared an update from Florida following severe hurricanes. She described assessing damage and checking on family, but also disclosed the death of a close friend and colleague. By 2026, Jen's visibility had shifted further into professional and ethical discourse within medicine. As a neonatologist at Boston Children's Hospital and faculty member at Harvard Medical School, she became increasingly involved in public discussions surrounding prenatal counseling and disability-related medical ethics. This marks a clear transition from a tightly produced television narrative to a dispersed public identity shaped by real-world roles. Jen's presence is now primarily medical and academic. Bill's is entrepreneurial, and their family visibility surfaces only intermittently through digital platforms. The transformation is complete, not a scandal, not a fallout, but a deliberate and hard-won evolution from reality TV stars to professionals navigating life on their own terms. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.